I am Lisa. I'm about to turn 46. I have been married to Michael for over 30 years and our kids are getting pretty grown up. I have a sister named Nicole and I'm quite close with her husband David, who is like a real brother to me. David and Nicole have 3 kids. 2 are adults and 1 is still in middle school, living with my parents and Nicole. I have interacted with their kids a few times and they seem like good kids, probably take after David. Why do I say that? Well, without airing dirty laundry, my parents and Nicole are not the most pleasant people. My dad passed away when I was in my 20s due to illness, so it's just my mom now. She was never keen on parenting, pretty hands-off, so my paternal grandparents often stepped in to help. Nicole inherited that hands-off approach to parenting and David picked up the slack. Nicole and Mom also had a tendency to be reckless spenders and David had to work multiple jobs at times. I couldn't understand why David stayed married to Nicole, who even looked down on him at times. But my perspective changed significantly once I got married and had my own kids. Both Michael and I offered our help to David. Next thing you know, years have passed and David is now 55. When I was around 45, an unexpected incident occurred. David fell ill. I was doing chores at home when my phone rang. It was Nicole. Sounding a bit flustered, she told me that David had collapsed. She didn't know all the details but asked if I could come to the hospital immediately. I dropped everything and rushed to the hospital Nicole directed me to. When I got there, Nicole, her kids, and Mom were already in a room, their hands clasped together, looking anxious. Seeing them like that, I felt relieved in an inappropriate way, realizing that Nicole must love David after all. I don't know how much time passed, but we all sat there in silence, just waiting. Finally, the door slowly opened, and 2 doctors walked in with serious faces. We all looked up at once, fixing our gaze on the doctors. The doctors took a seat and explained David's condition without avoiding eye contact. According to them, the surgery was successful, but his chronic illness had worsened severely and his blood wasn't circulating well. They also mentioned he had developed nephropathy due to complications from diabetes, which was inhibiting his recovery. I had never hated the fact that David had chronic illness until now.
"We'll keep an eye on him in the ICU for now, but his survival is uncertain,"
they said. Disheartened, we all went home.
"Did you even know David was in such bad shape?"
Michael and I sat down at the dining table after arriving home, both of us feeling the weight of the air in the room. Michael broke the silence, asking me seriously. I thought back but couldn't remember hearing any news like that. No, I knew he had a chronic illness but didn't think it was this serious. Will he be okay?
"Don't worry, let's just wait for now."
We spent a restless night unable to sleep. 3 days later, David never woke up and his condition worsened until he passed away. Supported by Michael, I broke down in tears. The loss hit hard. He was like a real brother to me. David and Nicole still have their 13-year-old daughter, Emily. Can Nicole and Mom raise Emily on their own from now on? Seeing Emily stand still white looking at David, who lay peacefully in the ICU, made me feel uneasy. But there was no time to dwell on that. Preparations for David's funeral began immediately. Nicole and Mom talked with the funeral home and the arrangements were made. Modestly, without spending too much, although it was supposed to be a private viewing, many people showed up to pay their respects due to David's past deeds, bringing flowers at the very least. With the busy viewing behind us, the family-only farewell ceremony and cremation were scheduled for the next day. As the farewell ceremony concluded and only the cremation remained, I noticed something when we were adding flowers to David's casket. Inside the casket, there were several pictures of Nicole and David, likely placed there by Nicole. "Nicole, look at this." I pointed to the photos while Nicole touched David's cheeks, tears streaming down her face. Upon seeing them, Nicole softly uttered, David asked me to do this before he passed. He wanted me to put pictures of us together in his casket. He had even selected a few neatly placed in an envelope. I felt a bit annoyed at Nicole's somewhat proud expression, but I understood since it was David's wish. Just as I was about to move on without touching the photos, I caught a glimpse of a picture that was turned upside down. I picked it up and looked at it carefully. Wow, what's this? There were odd symbols written on the back of the photo. They didn't seem to form a date or anything recognizable. The mysterious arrangement made me uneasy. I have no idea either. What could it be? As I looked puzzled, Nicole expressed her own confusion. Ignoring Nicole's words, I pondered deeply about what these symbols could mean. While looking at David's peaceful, sleeping face, a past memory suddenly returns to me.
I used to exchange coded messages with friends when I was a kid.
That was when I was still a teenager and David had just married Nicole. David had cheerfully told me this during a game of solving ciphers. I focused to recall the story David told me. Then it hits me what he had been talking about. It was about using symbols for cipher games, just like what's on the back of his photo. Apparently, it was Morse code using long signal dashes and short signals dots to represent alphabets, numbers, and punctuations. I immediately attempt to decode what David must have written following the cipher game, and what I find is shocking.
I'm being targeted for life insurance money by my wife and mother-in-law, Rebecca. I can't save myself, but I want to protect my child. Emily is being abused under the guise of discipline from my wife. Please protect her. I hope Lisa finds this.
It seems the message was divided between the backs of 4 photos to go unnoticed. I look up at Nicole. She likely has no idea what David was thinking as she's unaware of the coded message. Just imagining what Nicole, who lovingly gazes at David, and Mom, who stands beside her, might have done, sends chills down my spine. What's going on? Nicole notices me looking at her. Our eyes meet. In that moment, my fear intensifies. I shake off Nicole's outstretched hand and shout, "Stop it!" The atmosphere turns tense. Both Nicole and Mom are staring at me in disbelief.
What happened?
Michael notices my distress and comes over, but I'm in no state to entertain his concern. I glare at Nicole.
I will never forgive you,
I say and rush out of the funeral home and the commotion. I look at the photos again from a distance, my hatred for Nicole and Mom intensifying.
Lisa, what's going on?
Worried about my sudden departure, Michael immediately came running after me. I wiped away the tears that were about to fall and showed the picture to Michael, who was catching his breath. Of course, Michael doesn't understand what it means. His eyes lingered on the front side before freezing upon flipping it over.
What are these symbols?
He asked, his face grim, looking at the hastily scribbled numbers. David and I used to play these cipher games when we were teenagers. The letter uses symbols from those games. I explained. I told Michael everything. That David might have been killed by Nicole and Mom, and that my niece, Emily, might be badly influenced. Michael listened in stunned silence. After a moment's thought, he finally spoke.
Going to the police won't do any good.
He was right. David's death was technically from illness, and Nicole and Mom didn't directly do anything. Given there's no actual evidence about Emily, the police probably can't do anything. I have heard the term civil matter often enough to easily guess that the police wouldn't be able to take action in a situation like this.
Why don't we go check things out?
As I was feeling powerless about not being able to do anything, Michael quietly suggested,
Let's visit Lisa's parents' house on a day Emily is there and see how things are.
Seeing my confusion, Michael clarified with a serious look. Indeed, I recalled that I haven't had any interaction with Emily for several years now. I nodded at Michael's suggestion and decided to visit my family home at a later date. Following Michael's lead, I attended the cremation ceremony again that day and apologized to Nicole, saying, "Sorry for acting strange." Nicole clearly wasn't convinced, and Mom looked at me as if she thought I had gone mad. But I acted as normal as possible to avoid suspicion. After a few days passed, I was able to visit my family home with Michael on a day off. Since I had notified Mom in advance, she and Nicole greeted us with smiles. Perhaps because Michael was with me? "It's been a while since you came home." We obediently followed as we were led to the living room and took seats on the sofa. Nicole looked cheerful even though David had passed away only a few days ago. She seemed well. "Sorry for dropping by suddenly." When I said that, both Mom and Nicole cheerfully replied, "Your family, you are always welcome to come home." But I know these are their public faces. If I had come back alone, they would probably be sulking and say nothing. Where's Emily? Sipping the coffee Mom made, I looked around the room. Emily, maybe she's studying in her room. Can I go see Emily? As I stand up, Nicole and Mom look like they want to say something but don't, perhaps due to Michael's presence. They force a smile and say, sure. I head out of the living room and go toward what I assume is Emily's room. Michael had promised to keep Nicole and Mom away for a bit, so I know I'll have some time alone to talk with Emily. I pause in front of Emily's room, take a deep breath to steady myself and knock. I heard a faint voice in response, so I opened the door. The room felt bare, especially for a teenage girl. It had only a bed, a study desk, and a bookshelf. The bookshelf was filled with textbooks and workbooks, no comics or novels in sight, but I didn't bring that up, instead walking over to Emily, who looks at me nervously. It's been a while since David's funeral, Hal. We didn't get to talk much then. What are you up to? Emily is facing her desk with a textbook and a notebook open in front of her. But the notebook is blank. She looks down, not answering my question. Studying? She nods silently. Not making much progress. How about taking a break? I try to speak gently to Emily, who seems distressed, but her expression doesn't change. I would get yelled at by Mom. I see. Want to chat with me for a bit? When I offer a smile, Emily reluctantly turns her body to face me. I consider how to ask Emily about Nicole and the others. Are you doing okay without David? That's a good place to start. Emily keeps looking down and shakes her head. As long as you're fine, that's what matters. I've been worried. Worried? Yeah, David used to talk about you, and since he's suddenly gone, I have been concerned. Is Nicole giving you a hard time? I decide to be upfront, as I suspect Emily might not open up otherwise. At my words, Emily looks surprised, but quickly lowers her eyes again. What did you hear? Emily asked me quietly, but I hadn't gotten the full story from David about what Emily was up to, so I couldn't answer right away. Just then, whether Michael had lost his grip or not, Nicole burst into the room energetically. The sound is loud and Emily's expression changes to one of fear upon seeing Nicole. How long are you gonna chat? It appears Nicole came alone. Her eyes narrow and she glares at me. We haven't caught up in a while. What's the big deal? I don't know what you have to talk about, but if you want to, come downstairs. With that, Nicole enters the room, grabs Emily's arms, and pulls her up. At that moment, I heard Emily say, ouch! I tried to grab Emily's shoulder to stop Nicole from heading downstairs, but as soon as I touched her, Emily shouted, ouch! In a loud voice. I let go of her shoulder and looked at Emily. Her face contorted in pain. I didn't think I had grabbed her that hard. Could it really hurt that much? Trying again, I realized just how thin Emily's body was. I had always thought she was skinny, but this was extreme. I'm sorry. Emily, are you okay? I rushed over to Emily, who was crouching down, holding her shoulder, and peered into her face. That's when I noticed black marks on Emily's body, visible through the gaps in her clothing. I could lift Emily's shirt right there and then, but doing that wouldn't help with confronting Nicole. I'm sorry, Nicole. Seeing Emily just reminded me of the old days. You know, my own kids are grown up and we rarely see each other, so it was nostalgic. Pretending not to notice anything, I smiled at Nicole. How about this, Nicole? Can we invite Emily over to our place? I would love to catch up with her too. Right, Emily? Come over. It's been a while. Both Nicole and Emily looked surprised at my sudden suggestion. But Nicole gave me a sharp look and didn't agree. What are you talking about? Absolutely not. Yeah, figures. I knew Nicole would say that, but it was worth a try. I pondered what to do next. I desperately wanted to separate Emily and Nicole from this situation.
Oh, what's going on?
Just then, Michael seemed to catch on and pokes his head out from behind Nicole. Upon Michael's sudden appearance, Nicole was momentarily surprised, but quickly put on a public face. I watched Nicole and thought, she's quite the actress. I was just negotiating with Nicole. I ran into Emily after a long time and wanted to invite her to our house.
Why not? Come over. It's been a while, right, Nicole?
Michael seemed to understand and smile at Nicole. Thanks to him, Nicole couldn't say no and gave a reluctant nod. Michael and I immediately had Emily grab some clothes and we left her parents' home. In the car, Emily was mostly silent. Even when I tried to make conversations, her response were mostly just, uh-huh. When we got home, I offered Emily some sweet tea and snacks and continued with light-hearted conversation. As time passed, I saw Emily's expression soften and sensed she was beginning to open up. Emily, about when I grabbed your shoulder earlier? Feeling we could now discuss it, I ventured into the sensitive topic. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to, but I saw some bruises on your body. Upon hearing this, Emily tensed up and looked down. I wondered if I had made a mistake by bringing it up, but then Emily slowly began to talk. Apparently, whenever Nicole didn't like something, she would physically lash out at Emily. There were even times when Emily wasn't given any food. Emily says, "It's all my fault," but I can understand why anyone would raise a hand to her to the point where it leaves bruises. Not feeding her is simply outrageous. That must have hurt. May I take a look at your shoulder? Since Michael is around, I decide not to ask to see her entire body and instead settle for the shoulder area visible under her clothing. After hesitating for a moment, Emily slowly lowers her clothing to reveal her shoulder. Both Michael and I are speechless at the severity of the bruise. It's not just a little bump or slap, it's something far worse. The bruise covers her entire shoulder with the darkest spots indicating where she was hit the hardest. This is awful! As soon as I say this, Emily covers her shoulder and continues talking. Until now, David had been Emily's shield protecting her. Nicole never directly attacked her. But with David gone, there is no one to protect her and the abuse is directed solely at Emily. She thought about asking her adult brothers for help but couldn't bring herself to do it, considering they might also be victims. Tears quietly rolled down Emily's cheeks, her shoulders trembling. Here, while I sit beside her, gently rubbing her back, Emily takes out her mobile phone from her bag and hands it to me. My dad told me to give this to you, Lisa, in case something happens to him. With that, Emily tapped on her smartphone and then showed me the screen again. It displayed what looked like a saved audio file. Michael and I exchanged glances before hitting the play button. What? The recorded conversation between Nicole and Mom reveals a shocking plot. They're planning to live easy lives by claiming David's insurance money to pay off debts, and to do so they need to make his death appear natural. This involves withholding medication, preventing hospital visits, and serving high-calorie and high-salt foods to worsen his condition. Both Michael and I are speechless, our faces ashen. After we listen to the recording, Emily continues. Dad had been feeling dizzy and had headaches. He couldn't go to the hospital and was getting worse day by day. I wanted to help him, but I was too scared to do anything. I hold Emily tightly as she cries and sobs. Apparently, it was David who instructed her to record the conversation. I copy the audio file from Emily's phone to mine. I tell her to get some rest, and Michael and I decide to go to the police and consult Child Protective Services about Emily. The next day, although I initially planned to send Emily home, a gut feeling stops me and we head to the police station together. We explain everything and Emily corroborates our story. The police decide that Emily will stay with us for a while and Nicole and Mom are arrested that day. They vehemently deny the charges, but the evidence including Emily's recording and my photos is compelling. They don't get to leave the police station and a trial is scheduled. Emily agreed to stand as a witness too. Though I hesitated, not wanting to put her through something so traumatic, she consented after some convincing. After all, it was for her sake as well. Based on various evidence, Nicole and Mom were sentenced to prison time. Emily was initially taken away by Child Protective Services, but her brothers decided to take care of her and were able to bring her back. We vowed to support them, so as not to burden David's children. Since then, we have increased our contact and visits with David's kids, and noticed they have brightened up compared to before. It's hard to believe that family members could commit such serious crimes, but what Nicole and Mom did wasn't as shocking as a regret that lingered for not urging David to divorce sooner. However, we can't stay shocked forever, especially if we want to preserve Emily's smile. We have decided to move forward hand in hand with David's children.